So joining me this morning is Eurosport's Matt Roberts. So Matt, you worked in many aspects of the motorbike industry, and more recently, obviously, with Eurosport at the BSB. But just before we get into all that, how are you keeping and how have you been getting on throughout the lockdown?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, Ollie. I'm really well, to be honest. It's been a difficult period, hasn't it, for everybody? I think, especially involved in sport, because there was so much uncertainty, especially at the beginning. Work-wise, and as a freelancer, that's always quite stressful. So I would say that at the beginning of the lockdown, didn't really know what was happening. We had some nice weather, so I've got 3 little kids, so we just played out a lot and tried to spend some time together, and then probably got a little bit anxious, spent a few weeks wasting time worrying about things, and then came to the conclusion that the best thing to do is try and be proactive. And so I got on with a couple of little projects that I'm doing. I'm writing a book, ghostwriting an autobiography for John Hopkins, who used to be a MotoGP rider. So he was stuck in America, but instead of seeing that at first, I was like, well, John's in America and I'm here. What's the point? I then thought, well, I can Skype him. So we got on Skype and got some work done. So yeah, bit up and down really, to be honest, like I think a lot of people, but we're coming through the other side now with a little bit of something to show for it and a bit of light at the end of the tunnel, I think.
Hopefully so. So just taking it back, pre-coronavirus, pre-Eurosport, pre-everything, I suppose, how did you come to get involved in presenting?
Well, kind of a long story, as I suppose these things are, but I actually, I did my degree in Spanish. Now that is going back a long time. That's 20 years ago now, but I did my degree in Spanish because that's what I enjoyed doing at school and college. And during my degree, I actually did Spanish in media studies, and during that degree, I'd always been into sport. I always loved football, and I played Gaelic football as well as a young lad, coming from an Irish family. So I had a wide interest in sport, not in motorbikes, but when I came to the end of my degree, I'd done my final year dissertation in radio journalism, and I'd done some sports stuff with that, and decided I wanted to go into sports journalism. And honestly, I didn't really know what area I would do it in. I actually, to be fair, when I just finished my degree, I was scouring the papers for job opportunities, and I saw this like a reality TV show. I haven't really told anybody about this because it's kind of disappeared, but I did like a reality show, which was a travel program. And I travelled through America and South America with this other guy. We had to film each other and do all these challenges and stuff like that. So that was kind of my first venture into TV presenting, if you like. And
yeah.
And I enjoyed it. And so when I came back from that, I was looking again for different jobs, and saw an advertisement in The Guardian for a job as a journalist with Dorna, who you probably know own the rights to the MotoGP World Championship. Mm-hmm. And they were somebody who was, I guess, cheap and English speaking with Spanish as well was a bonus. And the job was based in Barcelona, so it was something completely new and different for me. And I just went for it. So I went out to Barcelona at the end of 2000, and very quickly within Dorna then went from kind of writing press releases and doing the website, things like that, to doing some voiceover things, and then commentating live on the races. And it developed from there. Once I started commentating on the races for Dorna, which was on the world feed, BBC got involved in MotoGP, and I ended up doing some pit lane reporting for them, and then ultimately presenting. That's how it started.
And so I suppose it's kind of different. You said you were a pit lane reporter there. So explain for, I suppose, people who wouldn't know, what is the difference to actually presenting? I know yourself and Suzi Perry ended up taking it on, but being in the pits, seeing the riders walking around and all the rest of it. I know you're still out in the grid, but was there a difference between just doing the pit lane stuff and then actually going into full on presenting, or was it kind of just a natural sort of, graduation into that?
There is a big difference, actually. I think when you're the anchor, the presenter, there's a lot more pressure on you. You've got to hit all the times, and you're kind of there's more pressure on you. You're more in control of the situation, I suppose. As a reporter, you, in a way, I guess, you don't have to be facing the camera, which is quite an intimidating thing when you first do it. So you can step out of vision and you can just ask your questions to the rider. And at the end of the day, you know that if it's too short or if it's a little bit too long, it kind of doesn't matter, because you can just throw back. And I was working with a really experienced presenter in Suzi Perry, so she knew what she was doing. Whereas when you're a presenter, probably the hardest thing is working to times and getting out what you need to say without making mistakes, listening to the director, the producer, the production assistant, making calls on how long you have left for each link, and just piecing the whole thing together. That's probably the most difficult thing. So yeah, there is quite a big difference, actually, to be honest. And I think probably when you're a reporter, you've done some of these jobs, you think the presenter job might be easier than it actually is when you when you end up standing there talking to a million people back home or whatever. A bit different.
And then in 2014, you stayed within the industry, but kind of just went in a different direction, and started working for Eurosport with the BSB and the World Superbike. So was that different, kind of coming from MotoGP into this setting now?
Yeah, it's a different environment. Obviously, it's still a racing paddock, but yeah, you're going from, in terms of the sport, the pinnacle, to the base level, I suppose, really. And yeah, there's a huge difference, of course, in terms of the paddock, but the people are largely very similar. You know, they're very passionate about what they do. And as for the job itself, for me, it was kind of a step up in a way, and that might sound a little bit strange, but with the BBC, effectively what we were doing was we would do a half-hour build-up on BBC Two to a race that lasted 40 minutes, and then we'd get 5 or 10 minutes off the end. So the sum total of my presenting that day would be, I don't know, altogether maybe like 20 minutes worth of live stuff. And actually, I was quite inexperienced, and I wasn't really building up a lot of practice. That's probably the best way I can say it. So I didn't feel that over the years it builds up. But really, when you look around, I would look at other sports presenters and look at what they do and maybe what they did better than me, and think, well, actually, maybe they do that a bit better because they get more practice at it. And presenting is like any other thing, really. You can only improve if you practice. So I really relished the opportunity to come back and do the Eurosport thing, because with Eurosport, we would do, I think in those early days, we would do a couple of hours on Saturday and 6 hours live on a Sunday. So, and you're linking in and out of breaks, commercial breaks, things that I didn't do on the BBC. So in terms of, for me, like the challenge of my job, I was really up for it. It was quite a step up, and I learned a lot from working the BSB job that I've been doing on Eurosport. Probably, maybe not more than I did at the BBC, but different skills, I would say, yeah. And more practice, which is massive. You know.
And then, of course, as well as presenting on the circuits with the bikes, you also have done a bit of road racing, going over to the TT and presenting over there. What was, I suppose, I'm not going to ask the same question saying what was that like, but it was another kind of different experience, a different aspect of the sport that you were getting to view firsthand.
Yeah, I think I managed to do a couple of days at the TT in 2009 when I was just starting out really as a presenter. Craig Doyle was, I think he had a wedding or something like that. And anyway, they needed somebody to cover for 2 days. So I did 2 days for Craig. And I must say, Craig was fantastic with me when I met him before I did the 2 days. He was brilliant. And whenever I've seen him since, he's always been, he's just great company, a really nice guy. And definitely gave me a flavour of what I could aim for, really. I wanted to do the TT again. At that point, I wasn't the main presenter on the BBC. I was still a pit lane reporter, so that was a great experience, but I was still quite green. So to go back there a couple of years ago as the main presenter was really kind of, I got a lot of professional satisfaction from getting the call to do that, and I really enjoyed it. And as for the work itself, I mean, road racing, as you know, is quite unique. I think one of the things that I really like about bike racing in general is the personalities, the characters. As athletes go, they're very focused, dedicated and professional, but also they have a certain mental approach that is different, I think, to any other sport. And when you go road racing, that aspect goes to the next level. These guys are even more eccentric, even more, in some ways, they're kind of, I would say they're geniuses really in their own way. You know, the way that they approach racing, their technical intelligence, their emotional intelligence. It's all, I just find it all really fascinating. And obviously the challenge of the TT is like nothing else. So to get to speak to these guys and bring across their story. I mean, the racing speaks for itself. We don't need to talk about that so much, but to give the context and the colour that goes around it is really interesting, I think.
And then, of course, like as you say, you're the main presenter now with Eurosport, and when you went over to the TT there, but working with the likes of, you know, Steve Pager, James Whittam, Cameron Donald, you know, these guys that have actually done it. What is it like kind of presenting with them and getting, you know, do they kind of, I suppose, give you an insight into what it really is like, you know, because they've been there, they've been on that bike going down Bray Hill or going wherever it is.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And I think that's important, actually, because as a presenter and as the pundits, everybody has to understand what their role is in that structure. So I have obviously massive respect for the likes of Steve and for Cam and James Whittam, all those guys I'm lucky enough to work with. I could never imagine doing the things that they've done. So it's important that I don't even try and imagine that or try and pretend that I know. You know, the best thing you can do is always tee it up for them. Sometimes you might feel like you're asking a stupid question. Sorry, it's my mum. Call her back. Sorry about that. Sometimes it might be a stupid question, or you might worry about what the viewer might think. You know, if I ask a question that perhaps I know the answer to, really, if it's a technical thing, obviously not about riding, the viewer might think, oh, well, that's a stupid question, but it might be a question that needs to be asked because they need to tell it. So you can't be worried about asking a stupid question if it's your position to ask that question. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah. So I always
the team like.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. That's what being part of a team is, isn't it? So, yeah, to have that expertise on hand, and they're all the other thing as well. They're all really great guys. So I think when you build a relationship like that, where no one's trying to outdo each other, no one's competing with each other, everybody's giving each other the opportunity to demonstrate what they bring, then you create a nice energy. And all of those guys are humble. In that way, that I don't think any of them are really. Sometimes you meet ex-racers or ex-sports people who can be quite bitter or, reflect on what they didn't achieve or talk about themselves a lot, and perhaps and perhaps not give the respect to the current guys as much. But all of those guys that you mentioned that I'm lucky enough to work with, they're not like that really. So you do get, they're a pleasure to work with.
Yeah, and then of course with the way everything has gone this year with COVID-19 and all that, the road racing season was kind of a bit of a flop or whatever. But thankfully we got BSB on the road there. The first round was before last, and then another second round coming up now this weekend in Netterton. Am I right in saying Netterton?
Netterton, yeah.
So how's that been like under the current climate? How has it been? Has it been a change for you, or is it kind of just are you just going still doing your job?
It's changed a little bit because a big part of the job really is the social side of it and meeting people and getting stories and talking to various team members and the riders in the paddock. And obviously now with the current restrictions, you can't really do that. You kind of have to stick to your little bubble and stick to your area. So we did Donington Park, and that was the first one. Yeah, it was all a bit different. But to be honest with you, that was a clash weekend where we had World Superbikes and British the same weekend. So we had so much stuff to show in terms of the live action. It was kind of like, you're just linking into one, picking up off one and linking into the next with a little bit of a chat in between. So it wasn't. We didn't feel the restrictions so much, I would say. Yeah. Whereas this weekend at Snetterton, when it's just BSB, that might be a little bit more strange to do that.
And then just before we let you go, your predictions for the BSB this year. There's a lot of lads there kind of fighting it out, and everyone seems to be coming back in full force. Maybe the lockdown did them good, but for this season.
Yeah, BSB is just so difficult to call it. It's a bit of a cliche, but it's true. You know, you're going to have to look at the first round of Donington, and nobody saw Andy and Glenn Irwin having the performances that they did there. So I don't know. I just want more of that, really. I think the Ducatis probably over the course of the season will be, you would have to say, the bikes to beat. Josh Brooks is a former champion. He knows what it takes to win. So over the course of the 6 rounds, 18 races, you would have to think that he is the strongest. But then you never know. Like, Andrew and Glenn stepped up. So in such a big way at Donington. If they can maintain that, then anything could happen.
Well, thank you very much for coming on this morning, Matt, and I wish you the best of luck with the rest of the BSB World Superbike, and I think that's all you're doing for now, is it?
Superbike, yeah, for now, yeah.
Keep you busy for now, but best of luck, and hope we talk to you soon.
Lovely to talk to you. Thanks, Holly.